Hey guys, Rolando Rodriguez here with LeanGains.com, where we got workouts that work, eats that satisfy, and everything else you need to reach your lifestyle goals. Today we're going to continue talking about intermittent fasting, fasted training, which is something we started on the last video. If you haven't checked it out, links down below. Today's video, though, is going to be more focused on the benefits associated with fasted training and intermittent fasting. Now, before we get started, I want to make it very clear that this is not a magic pill. This is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's something that's worked for me, that's got me in the best shape of my life. I've fasted for the last 4 years. I've intermittent fasted for the last 4 years. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure that we understand the sources of energy that our body utilizes throughout the day and where they come from. Primarily in today's modern society and the way we eat today, our body utilizes carbs first, sugar/glucose that we consume. Second, our body utilizes the fats. So if there's no carbs, our body turns to fats, the fatty acids, the triglycerides that are in our system. And finally, if there's no carbs or fats, our body utilizes its own muscles. It breaks down the protein in the body to use the amino acids as a source of fuel, which is something we certainly don't want to do. In this video, we're going to be talking primarily about what happens to carbs when we consume them, and what happens to the carbs in our body when we train fasted and when we intermittent fast. Now, this leads into our body accessing fat as fuel, and that's where we want to get to. But for this video, we're just going to be discussing mainly what happens to the carbs in our body and how intermittent fasting can help turn your body from a storage mindset to a burning mindset. So now that we know the three things that our body utilizes for energy, let's talk about glucose. Let's talk about the carbs that we consume. When we consume carbs, the glucose that we need immediately goes to where it needs to go, right? And so then any extra glucose is then converted into glycogen, which is stored in two places in the body. It can store it in the liver and it can store it in the muscles. So let's say we have a surplus of glycogen in our system. We already filled the tank in our liver and in our muscle tissue. What happens to the surplus? It goes into long-term storage so we can use it later when we need energy. Now, long-term storage is fat. Now, how much glycogen can the human body store? On average, anywhere from 320 to 400 grams of glycogen. For the sake of this video, we're just going to use the 400 number and assume that everybody can store 400 grams of glycogen. The liver and the muscles' glycogen stores serve two different purposes. The livers, first of all, can only store about 100 grams of glycogen, while the muscles can store about 300 grams of glycogen. Now, the more muscles you have, the more glycogen you can store. So anyways, let's talk about what the liver does with its glycogen tank. The liver releases glycogen throughout the day as needed, and primarily used by the brain, right? And its tank is, again, only about 100 grams, and that glycogen tank lasts for about 3 hours. Now think about it. How often are you hungry? About every 3 hours or so, right? And the typical American diet, the typical really modern person eats about every 3 hours or starts to get hangry about every 3 hours. And most certainly some people start to get headaches and they get cranky. Now, why do you get headaches and cranky? Literally withdrawal symptoms from the carbs and sugars. Our brain's addicted to the simple sugars that we feed it. It's our primary source of energy because of the way we eat. So now, the liver's depleting that throughout the day, and it lasts for about 3 hours. It can last longer, but certainly if you're fasting for more than 12 hours, your liver glycogen is probably close to depleted, if not completely depleted. Now, muscle glycogen is stored locally in the muscle and is only utilized if that muscle is utilized. So if you contract the muscle, the glycogen is there to provide you the energy needed to explode, to move, to contract, to whatever you're doing with that muscle when you're doing it. Now, if you do not utilize that muscle, guess what happens? You don't utilize the glycogen within the muscle. No matter what you do, the liver releases glycogen throughout the day, but the muscle glycogen is stored in the muscle and is only utilized when the muscle needs it. So if you do not work out that day, you do not need to eat as many carbs, because if you do, you're going to replenish your liver glycogen levels, and then your muscle glycogen levels are going to be where they were originally, and so you'll have a surplus of glycogen in your system. And that is why LeanGains cycles carbs. Because on the days you don't work out, if you eat the same amount of carbs that you normally eat on a typical day, guess what? You're going to have a surplus of glycogen in your system, and a surplus of glycogen turns into long-term storage, which is fat. And that's what we don't want to do. So now let's talk about a real life example, right? You guys know that I train fasted almost every single day, at least on an 8-hour fast. So let's say I went to bed the night before at 9 p.m. right after I'm done eating, right? My glycogen level in my liver is completely full, and the glycogen storage in my muscle tissue is completely full. So after my workout, I've depleted 200 grams, let's say, of the 300 grams of glycogen in my muscles, and I've already depleted from overnight sleep 50 grams of the 100 grams in my liver. Now, for the rest of the day, my body is gonna only be utilizing the liver glycogen, and I'm already on an 8-hour fast. Yeah, I was sleeping, so you probably use a little bit less, but so what? I'm gonna completely deplete those glycogen levels in my liver by 3 p.m. when I start to eat. So then the whole deal is throughout the day from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'm only running on 50 grams of glycogen in my liver, right? And where does my body, if it can't access the glucose that is in my muscles, the 100 grams of glucose that I still have left over from my muscle, where does it access its energy from? And that's fats, right? And that's where you want to be. Fasted training and intermittent fasting tap into your fat burning zone. Now, fasted training means that you've depleted the glycogen stores that are in your muscle, and the next time you eat, guess what? The extra glucose that's being turned into glycogen is going to refill your liver tank 100 grams and then refill whatever you depleted in your muscles, which in our example was 200 grams. So we have 200 grams that need to be refilled in the muscles and 100 grams in the liver. That's a total of 300 grams of glycogen that we need to restore before we have any extra glycogen floating around. It goes straight to the liver and to the muscles. And guess what? The more muscles you have, the more glycogen you can store. So it's good to get bigger. Now, it's not all about depleting your glycogen level. There's another reason that you want to try to intermittent fast and train fasted. And it's pretty much two main other aspects. One is turns your body from a mindset of we're storing energy to a mindset of we need to burn and use energy. If you train fasted, your body's saying, you know what, it's time to go. Let's start burning energy, right? And if you continue the fast after your workout, your body's saying, where are we going to get the energy from? We're going to get it from the fats, because we already depleted our glycogen storage in our liver, and the only place we can go to is to the extra glycogen that's already been turned into fat in our system. So we're gonna access our fat. Training fasted actually releases hormones and enzymes in your body that switches your body from we're storing to we're burning. The more your body learns to switch from storing energy to burning energy, the easier it will be to burn energy. And that's why almost 3 months into intermittent fasting, I realized that the more fats I ate, the better I felt the next day, the more energetic and the harder I could go with my workouts. I wasn't using only fats to burn as energy, but my body was accustomed to saying, you know what, we need to switch to the fats. Okay? Especially if you maintain a fasted state after working out. Remember, I stop eating at 9 p.m. I work out at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm done working out by 7 a.m. still fasted, and I don't eat again till 3 p.m. or later. So what will end up happening is at the end of that fast, if I start to eat more fats and proteins than carbs, my body's going to say, hey, you know what? We're already in fat burning mode. Let's utilize that dietary fat and keep this thing going, and we're going to use that as energy. And any carbs that I do consume, my body's going to take and restore the liver glycogen storage tank and the muscle glycogen storage tank, right? So I just have that much less extra carbs floating around my body. And it's a big deal. Your body learns to switch over from storage to fat burning. Now, the final thing we're going to touch on today, and this isn't the final benefit of intermittent fasted or fasted training or restricting your calories. But for today, the last thing we're going to touch on is the release of growth hormones. If you train in a fasted state and if you are intermittent fasting, your body is going to release certain growth hormones that it wouldn't if you were constantly eating. Think about it. It makes perfect sense. If we were back in the day in the wild, right, and we start to get a little bit hungry, we start to realize, hey man, we need some food. Your body's not going to say, hey, go to sleep, man, it's okay, we'll eat tomorrow. No, your body's going to say, you know what, man, we need to get going, we need to get after that buffalo, we need to find that food, we need to keep searching, so I'm going to give you an extra boost. I got some enzymes and some hormones to actually allow you to get the energy you need to survive. So your body actually releases hormones that say, hey, let's get some more energy, let's get some more intensity, and let's make this happen because we need some food. And as a matter of fact, think about this. When you're really, really, really hungry, after a while, you know that hunger pain goes away. But then the moment someone says, hey, we're gonna go eat, you perk up. Life's good, you're excited, you're energetic, it's time to go. You got energy. Where'd that energy come from? You were hungry, you don't have any source of energy. Well, it's because of the growth hormones and the other hormones that are released inside your body. And the growth hormones, guess what? They do exactly what they sound like. They help your body grow. They help your body replenish itself. They help your muscles. And the thing is yeah, you're not going to release an immense amount that's going to make such a huge difference, but guess what? It's more than if you weren't fasting. So when someone says, oh, the intermittent fasting doesn't really release, the thing is you get more growth hormones from intermittent fasting than if you were just eating all day. So to recap, the 3 things that we talked about today and the 3 benefits of fasted training and intermittent fasting. 1, we got glycogen depletion, which means pretty much that you can eat a little bit more carbs without storing those carbs as fat than if you weren't intermittent fasting or training fasted. 2, we got the actual switching the mentality of your mind from storing energy to burning energy, from storing carbs to burning carbs, from storing fats to burning fats, and that's where we want to be. Number 3, we got the growth hormones that are released that have endless applications to your body, to your muscle development, to whatever you got going on. So that was a lot of information I threw out to you, and we're going to be talking and diving more into it as we go on with these video blogs about certain aspects. If you got any questions or comments, please mention them down below. This has been Rolando Rodriguez with xgains.com. That's X dash, the symbol, not the word, dash, gains.com. I hope you guys have a fantastic week. Peace.